If you're Gen Z, you might notice how quickly humor shows up when something feels uncomfortable. A serious conversation turns into a joke. A painful truth gets wrapped in irony. A moment of vulnerability gets softened with a meme reference or a casual, "it's fine," even when it isn't. From the outside, it can look like you don't care. But from the inside, it can feel like you're trying to stay safe while still staying connected. Humor becomes the way you show up without fully exposing what you're carrying. This kind of humor isn't just entertainment. It's emotional management. Research shows that people often use humor as a coping strategy because it changes the emotional temperature of a moment. It creates distance from pain without fully denying it. It gives you a way to acknowledge something difficult while keeping it from becoming overwhelming. And for many Gen Z minds, that balance matters because the world can feel intense, fast, and constantly observed. Studies suggest that humor is especially likely to become armor in environments where emotional exposure feels risky. If you grew up with constant visibility, constant comparison, and constant feedback, your nervous system learns that being too open can have consequences. Not always dramatic consequences, but social consequences. Misunderstanding, judgment, screenshots, being reduced to one moment. So instead of expressing pain directly, you translate it into something lighter, something safer, something that can be dismissed if it lands wrong. Humor gives you an exit. If someone doesn't respond well, you can say you were just joking. And that ability to retreat can feel like protection.
This is also why Gen Z humor often has a specific tone. Self-aware, fast, layered, sometimes dark, sometimes detached. Psychological studies indicate that when people feel chronically uncertain, they often prefer coping styles that restore a sense of control quickly. Humor can do that. It takes a messy feeling and turns it into something you can hold, something with timing, something you can deliver, something that makes other people respond in a predictable way, even if only for a second. Laughter is a signal. It says, "We're okay right now." And for a nervous system that's used to scanning, okay right now can be enough to keep going.
Researchers have found that social connection is a major reason humor becomes a default. Humor isn't only about distance, it's also about bonding. If you can make someone laugh, you can create closeness without the risk of heavy emotion. You don't have to ask for comfort directly. You can earn warmth indirectly. For Gen Z, where communication often happens through quick signals, humor becomes a language of belonging. A shared joke can feel like a shared identity. A shared reference can feel like being understood. And being understood is a form of safety. But humor as armor usually appears most in the moments when direct emotion feels too exposed. If you've ever felt a lump in your throat and immediately made a joke, that isn't random. It's regulation. Studies suggest that when people feel vulnerable, they often shift into strategies that reduce emotional intensity fast. Humor can interrupt the nervous system's escalation. It can keep tears from coming. It can keep the room from getting too quiet. It can keep the focus from landing too directly on you. In that sense, humor isn't avoidance in a shallow way. It's a protective reflex shaped by what your body has learned about what happens when you're fully seen.
The internet amplifies this pattern because it changes what emotional exposure means.
Recent research suggests that online environments can increase self-monitoring because you're not only expressing yourself, you're anticipating how your expression will be interpreted. In a space where tone is easily misread and context is easily lost, humor can feel like a safer delivery system. Irony and memes can communicate emotion with built-in ambiguity. You can say something true while also making it unclear how serious you are. That ambiguity can be calming when you don't fully trust the audience, or when you're not sure how you want to be received. Over time, though, humor as armor can create internal consequences. One consequence is emotional confusion. If you keep translating feelings into jokes, you may become less practiced at recognizing what you actually feel in the moment. Psychological studies indicate that when emotions are repeatedly interrupted or redirected, people can experience a disconnect between their internal state and their outward expression. You might laugh while feeling sad. You might sound fine while feeling overwhelmed. And because you're good at making it light, people may assume you don't need support, even when you do.
Another consequence is loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness. You can be socially active, funny, and liked, and still feel like no one really knows you. Researchers have found that closeness depends not just on time spent together, but on perceived emotional access. If you're always the one making things lighter, you may become the safe person for everyone else, while not feeling safe enough to be heavy yourself. Humor keeps the connection alive, but it can also keep the deepest parts of you out of the room.
Humor as armor can also become a way of preempting criticism. If you make the joke first, you control the framing. If you point out your own flaws before anyone else can, you reduce the sting. Studies suggest that self-deprecating humor can function as a defense against evaluation, especially in people who are sensitive to judgment. It's a way of saying, "I'm already aware, so no one can surprise you." But this can quietly reinforce a belief that being imperfect is dangerous unless you soften it with laughter.
There's also a relationship consequence. Some people interpret humor as openness, while others interpret it as distance. If you respond to serious moments with jokes, someone might feel emotionally shut out, even if your intention is to keep things manageable. Research shows that people differ in how they read emotional cues, and mismatched cue styles can create misunderstandings. One person wants direct reassurance, the other offers lightness. Both are forms of care, but they don't always land the same way.
A calmer way to understand Gen Z humor as armor is that it often makes sense in context. It's a generation living with high stimulation, high visibility, and constant social feedback. Humor becomes a way to stay human inside that. It's a way to process without collapsing, to connect without overexposing, to admit something is hard without making it the whole room. And it's not always a problem. Studies suggest that humor can be a healthy coping tool when it helps people tolerate stress and maintain connection. The difference is whether humor is a choice or a reflex, whether it adds lightness or replaces honesty entirely. And noticing that difference doesn't require forcing yourself to become more serious or more open. Sometimes it's enough to recognize that the joke was doing a job. It was protecting you. It was keeping you safe. It was giving your nervous system a handle on something that felt too raw.
If this felt familiar, you can like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who uses humor to get through more than they let on.